Welcome to the horror of Netflix. My name is Cal McPhail and I'm joined here by my friend, Mr. Ghastly Tales himself, Michael J. Whitehouse.
Michael J. Whitehouse.
Yeah.
It's D.
How you doing?
I'm good. Looking forward to discussing the film. What film are we
We haven't
discussing?
done a horror on Netflix together.
No.
And I have missed you.
Okay, that's a bit creepy.
And the film in question that we're going to be talking about is Event Horizon.
Yeah, he switched it on me. I thought it was going to be the mist.
See, the mist will be in an upcoming episode. But yeah, so Event Horizon, possibly one of the few redeemable Paul W.S. Anderson. Never make the mistake of saying Paul Thomas Anderson. Don't get those two guys together. One guy is a maverick auteur and the other one is a maverick cunt.
Jesus.
Well, I mean, oh god, I watched one of the Resident Evil but recently and it's just... I mean, the first Resident Evil is passable, but the subsequent
The first Resident Evil is okay,
it's a downward slope.
but eventually it gets to the point where, remember you sent me that
Afterlife,
Is that what that one was? Oh,
is one of the
God.
worst movies ever made, and the next one that's coming out is called the final episode.
It better be.
Don't you lie to us now! Don't you come back with an additional one. So, Eventful Horizon, Eventful Horizon stars Sam Neill as an event manager who's got the biggest event coming up.
Can I apologise for this? You do it properly, can I?
Okay, Sam Neill is well, not necessarily theoretical physicist, just a physicist.
God, how many tangents
Physicist,
can you go on?
in general, who is working on... He worked and created a faster than light drive, and he created a ship that was capable of doing so. However, that ship mysteriously disappeared and they lost all contact. But now it's back, and he's joined a crew of people that have
10
gone
years
out.
later.
Yeah, 10 years later, to go and examine the Event Horizon and see what's going on. What's going on in the old Event Horizon? Did you enjoy this film, Michael?
At the time, I remember really enjoying it. I think I must have been about, I don't know, 17. What year was it? Was it 97?
That's about right. I would have
Around
been about
about that.
7 years old, I think.
Okay, alright, you're younger than me. Well played. You Shall Die.
I didn't see it in the
me.
cinema, is what I'm saying.
I remember enjoying it at the time. I think the thing with Event Horizon is that it does have genuine spooky moments. It can be genuinely creepy. It explores something that I always think is really effective in horror, which is the idea of the space derelict.
It's a haunted house movie, really. A lot of people would say.
Absolutely. But the problem with it is that when, in hindsight now, when you watch it, you realise that it's really just it's made up of composite parts from other films. They just took things from different movies and put them together. And yes, it is creepy, but it does have Hellraiser in there. You know,
I wouldn't even say I wouldn't even say it's homages at points. It's almost to the point where it's borderline ripping off.
Look at Sam Neill's makeup. It's
Yeah.
at one point it's a slight spoiler, but I think it borrows heavily from things like Solaris and you know, there's a lot of films that it borrows from. It is an enjoyable romp. One thing I would say that I always found really peculiar about Event Horizon is that there's one moment in the film of utter comedy, and it comes out of nowhere, and it's your typical let's do the sort of let's write the black guy in a horror film, which really does the actor a disservice. I quite like him. I can't remember what
Is that
else
the bit
he's in,
like,
but
is he
where
doing a
he's floating
spacewalk?
back
Yeah.
Alright, I'm coming, and you're just kind of like, oh
Yeah, it's
God.
just utterly unnecessary, and it's kind of indicative of Paul W.S. Anderson to come.
It's really lame. But other than that, I think the idea of this ship punching a hole through reality and basically warping to another place in the universe, then 10 years later,
That's what happens, by the way, spoilers.
coming back, that idea of and the idea of it bringing something back, spoilers again, it is a creepy idea. So the premise of the film is actually much creepier than the execution.
Now, was his wife not on the Event Horizon when it disappeared? Sam Neill's wife?
Yes, I think so.
So it's got kind of double meaning because he's got a huge kind of attachment to the ship, mainly because he built it, but also it almost becomes an emotional attachment to the ship that he's got as well. He spent so much of his life on it, it's so important to him, plus he lost his wife in the ship, so for Sam Neill it's a real point of importance going back to it. One thing, I don't know if you've heard about this as well, but both the director and a lot of people involved in it have alleged that there's a much longer version of this film, and they had to massively cut the film down in order to get a less mature rating.
They found it recently though, did they not?
Well, no, the rumour has it there's a VHS copy
but
of it.
He came out, he said at Comic Con, he said
that he might bring it out.
That they found it and he was
going to like, yeah, whatever, Paul.
I mean, it's not a classic film, but it's one that you hear a lot of people talk about. If you look on Rotten Tomatoes, you'll see that it's got a really low rating. I think that's very harsh on it. I think some of that, I would imagine, is after the fact and is people reviewing that film because of what the director's output's been after.
Do you know what? I would make an interesting comparison and reference a previous horror Netflix film and look back at The Keep, which is also in itself a haunted horror movie. Haunted Hour? Haunted Hour.
There's nothing worse
Jack Hour
than a haunted
starring in 48, sequel to 24. Yeah, the Keep is a haunted house movie as well, but it's also something that I think suffered from having sections cut from it. And you feel like there's points in Event Horizon, especially towards the end, where there's definitely a lot of the darker imagery that could have been in it. Because ultimately, I don't want to say it's tame, but the kind of like hell that transpires upon the show could be a lot worse than it is. It's really a bit generic, to be honest.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think what I would say about it is that there's another film that there's an aspect that always reminds me of Event Horizon or vice versa, and that's 2010 when they go, and again it's the whole idea of a space derelict being out in the boundaries of the solar system, and it's a creepy premise, and I really love it. I would love to see someone genuinely doing that premise, make it into an entire film, and with excellent execution, not borrowing heavily from other movies.
Yeah. One thing I would say is it's got quite a few recognisable faces amongst the cast. Sean Pertwee.
John Pertwee, the Third Doctor's son.
Yep.
And Wurzel Gummidge,
who is a bit of a horror icon himself. Dog Soldiers and a few other.
He's great in Dog Soldiers.
He's a good actor. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's another one of these movies, and it seems to be a bit of a recurring theme in Netflix selections, but also in horror itself, where there's core strong ideas, but in terms of the execution and comes out, a lot of the films in horror in general and the ones that we picked haven't quite managed to hit that great note.
I think it's because horror as a genre is interlinked to the idea of mystery, and unfortunately when you have a horror story, whether it's a film or a short story or a novel or anything like that, the setup tends to be 9 times out of 10 is what drags you in, and you get this creepy feeling while you're experiencing the story, but the explanation and the payoff just can never live up to that true mystery, and I think maybe it suffers from that. Can I ask you, have you seen a film called Sphere? Dustin Hoffman, Sharon Stone, Samuel L. Jackson.
Alright, no, that's
Queen
not
Latifah.
That's not the one where he's Tom Cruise's brother.
No. Sphere is a film that came out round about the same era, and it's a really underrated movie, and they do this sort of space derelict thing, but the space derelict is wrecked under the ocean.
Right.
When you go to it, but it's well worth it, and I remember those 2 films coming out.
The space derelict is wrecked under the ocean.
Yeah,
is it a ship?
Yeah.
Right, so it's not a space derelict.
Well, it's a spaceship.
A spaceship under the ocean? So it's a spaceship.
So it's a spaceship.
Something like a ship.
Right, shut up. So, but that's a film that shares a lot with Event Horizon, but I think the execution is actually far better. But the funny thing, what do you think? See, with Event Horizon, the director has said that it's the film that he's most proud of, and it feels like. No, but do you not think when you're watching it,
Mortal Kombat,
it feels like the filmmakers are genuinely trying?
I know. I think they were trying to do something.
It doesn't feel that way.
No, I mean it became campy slog eventually. His work. I mean the Resident Evil series and the Musketeers are pretty indicative of that. But I think, you do get the feeling, but I think it tapers off. And it starts off with something with an interesting premise, and they start to build the mystery, and then all of a sudden it just goes, and and on the way down on the slippy slide, it's grabbing every horror trope on the way down. It's just like, look at me, I'm entertaining.
I mean, I would still say it's definitely worth a watch.
No, it's worth a watch.
It's like, I can't remember what the rating is on Rotten Tomatoes. It's like 28% or something like that. And I would say
it's
a
a bit
solid.
unfair.
It's when it's at its best, it's like an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
When it's at its worst, it's like a 5 or a 6. You know,
33%. It's across the whole. It's probably more fair. Can I ask you, have you seen Sunshine, the Dan Boy film? Did you enjoy that?
Yes.
I would.
On second viewing.
On second viewing, so initially you didn't.
I'm a big Danny Boyle fan, and I was really looking forward to that film. Went in to see it, didn't grab me. I was really disappointed. I've watched it twice since, and I really like it.
Did you like it the second time when you realised he was Captain America?
Yes, that's
cool.
exactly it.
That is a good example of a space derelict as well. Enjoyable movie.
That's a great
good.
example.
I'd probably say if you're looking for a science fiction horror movie with more of an emphasis on the science, I would say the science in that movie is definitely better. Sunshine.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I will say there is a moment in the film where Sam Neill describes the idea of like an Einstein Rosenberg bridge.
Aye, well he's warp bubble, and he's not taking his bit. He does the classic fucking sci-fi trope these days where it's like, this is warp travel, right? 2 points, bit of paper.
But that's the first place that I saw that.
I don't know. I've seen it on other shit.
I've seen it in other things, but before that,
Hunt for Red October.
Why do they mean? Why are they?
But I'm trying to think. Shit, you put me off. This is the classic thing that we do. This is why we don't do videos together. In Event Horizon, do you not feel that the kind of, I don't want to say warp drive because I can't remember exactly what it is. But the drive, this faster than light drive, do you not feel that it's already unnecessarily gothic? I mean, the entire ship is meant to be designed like a cathedral, and the core of it itself does feel that way. But you immediately you see it and you're like, nah, something's not right.
Yeah,
look at that. They've definitely done something bad.
It looks ominous from the start.
I mean, had you just built a cube and it had done that, you'd be like, well, you know what, I did everything I could, I made the most base thing ever. What? But when you build a levitating sphere covered in spikes, then you're asking for it.
Here's something interesting about Event Horizon though. In some ways, it addresses the idea of an unspeakable evil or unspeakable madness that Lovecraft did.
Because it's not hell, because they talk about hell.
Well, you don't know, you don't entirely know what it is, but it's people use the language that they try to explain within their own concepts of what it could be, where this ship has went to. People say things like hell. There's video footage that they find from the previous crew, and that stuff's quite freaky, and it's actually quite gory as far as I remember.
Yeah.
But it's well worth a look, and I think that the Lovecraftian angle is interesting because not a lot of people have actually been able to tackle the idea of this unspeakable, unmentionable, indefinable horror that just permeates things rather than having a central horror character like Pinhead, like Freddy, like Jason. Unfortunately, what happens is that they then resort to that trope with the Sam. It's a little bit of a spoiler there. Sorry, Michael. But yeah, you can bleep that out.
I agree. Well, yeah, I agree.
This is the longest horror of Netflix we've ever done.
Quite possibly. Who knows if Alan's even recording? He's drawing away there. What are you drawing, Alan?
I was just practicing.
Cool. Practicing drawing?
Drawing hell.
Pretty much,
cool.
Cool.
Alan is just... so I would definitely watch it, and I mean, like, what difference does it make? You paid for Netflix anyway.
Don't expect a masterpiece, but you'll definitely get some chills out of it, and I think it's a lot better than some of the ratings.
Yeah. More than putting your head in a freezer?
Yes.
There you go. So it's 2 heads in a freezer out of 5.
And check out the Facebook page and all that good stuff down below, and hit the subscribe button because we are sub whores.
We'll be back.
Bye for now.